Is it SoCal or NoCal?
No Cal.
Okay.
Sacramento, the city of trees.
Okay. I think
Excellent,
we're
excellent.
recording and it's time to start. So I am going to welcome everybody to the um, January edition of the Tucson Macintosh User Group. And I would welcome the sustaining members, the new members, first-time guests, and switchers. I do know that we have some first-time guests here. We have people from every contiguous 48 states uh, time zone. We have Eastern time zone, we have Central time zone. Of course, we have Mountain time zone, and Arizona, the only people who are realistic and do not change their time. Spring ahead, fall back business. And we have some uh, Pacific time zone people. So, welcome everybody. And I would um, like to have you join us in celebrating New Year's Day, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Day, Earth at Perihelion, and the Planetary Parade. We will gather next time on Tuesday, February 18th at this same virtual location. In February, we will have another Ask Me Anything session hosted by Kevin, and hopefully Melissa will be able to join us in February as well. She led a lot of the discussion here in January. Also in February, Melissa will give us an update to passkeys. Is it time to jump in with both feet or just stick a toe in the water to test its temperature? On Thursday, February 6th, we will hold our next in-person meeting at the Murphy Wilmot Library. Ironically, it's located on Wilmot Avenue in Tucson. The meeting will take place from 3:30 to 5:30. Refreshments will be served only if you bring them with you. Please, no leftover Christmas cookies or fruitcake. For more information, please check the TMUG announce list or drop one of the officers an email. It would be helpful to us to if you were to RSVP to me via email or via direct message in the Zoom chat. Do we really, you don't need a ticket to get in, but we would like to know how many people are coming thereabouts. Um, and it would be helpful to us. We are still newbies at doing in-person meetings since the before times. Da, 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 da. Please see the chat window for a link to the online presenter poll. I don't know if Bob Doms has put it in there. There it is. He just put it in the chat. And I have a direct message from Chris Wesselman, says he's going to try to make it. That's great. Um, okay. The new virtual door prize during our Zoom meetings. Last month's winner was Melissa Davis. Congratulations, Melissa. I think you kind of earned it today during the Ask Me Anything session. Once again, TMUG has had a contribution drive for the Community Food Bank of Southern Arizona. And Mark Jaffe, our treasurer, will give us a quick recap. Take it away, Mark.
Okay. We received checks totaling $184 from members. Is my mic on?
Yes, you're doing
There's no
fine.
green. I have no green frame on the new version here. So we received 184. We matched that, and we put in $200 of TMUG's money for a grand total of $568 to the Community Food Bank.
I think that is a good thing. The food bank can use donations every day of the year. We try to think about them during the holidays from Thanksgiving to New Year's, but it's I'm sure they're happy to get it every any month of the year. TMUG is now able to offer Zelle as a method of payments for your membership dues. Thanks to Mark and others who have set up the account and tested it, please send your payments to tmugdues@gmail.com. And this has also been published in the newsletter and it's on the website under membership. Uh, Next point of business is Apple Store in Tucson is going through a remodel and an expansion. It is still operating from temporary quarters, which is upstairs, pretty much directly above where it was at the La and Cantada Mall. We ask you to subscribe to the TMUG YouTube channel. When we reach 50 members, we will be able to do more with YouTube, such as a live stream. And I bet we can get Roger to put the name of the current name for the TMUG channel um, into the chat for you to do that. What other announcements? What did I forget? Well, I guess we can move ahead then. Are there any for sales or wanted to buy items from the floor?
Yep,
Oh,
I got one.
okay. Go ahead, Kevin.
I saw Helen Wheels last month, and
Oh,
she
good.
gave me a turntable to find a new home. So I have that. It's the one made by Ion. They sell on Amazon for about 120 bucks. So if anybody would like it, they could have it. The only caveat is they need to come pick it up.
Okay. Okay. I would think that if you and this is this USB connection or is
Yeah,
it
I put a link in the forums a couple of weeks ago
okay.
about it. So it has the specs and everything else in there.
Okay. If you'd like that, it would be nice if we could get some cash to Helen. I'm sure she always needs some. I don't know if she can accept Apple Pay cash.
I
Would
don't think
not
so.
you don't think so? Okay.
No, and she's not hurting either, so she's doing pretty good, which is
She's
nice.
doing okay. All right.
She's
All
doing
right.
okay, and she didn't want anything for it. And I could bring it with me to the meeting if somebody wants it.
Okay. Okay. So uh, touch base with Kevin if you are interested in that. A USB connection turntable. I would be interested, but before I moved to Arizona, I sold off all my vinyl um, and kind of miss it, but such is life. All right. So at this point, I am going to turn it over to Ridge for the tech update and security news. But before I do, I want to say that we will still be taking nominations from the floor for any of the officer positions, president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, and member at large. Um, if you are a member of TMUG with your dues paid up, you are eligible to run for office. You do not need to be on the technical level of Kevin or Melissa to run for office. All you need to be is a member and someone who wants to help direct the ship of state for TMUG. So after the tech news and update, security update, we're going to do the election and Bob Doms will be acting as the electoral college. So Ridge, are you ready to go ahead? He's given me the okay sign. So turning it over to you, Ridge.
Okay, here we go. And here we go for the monthly tech update for the month of January. And of course, we start always with software updates. And you can see that Adobe had 4 of their applications that were updated. And ArcTex is busy balancing. The ones that are probably important to you and me would be maybe Firefox and Chrome, and maybe Office for the Mac. And the Zoom Workplace application today is now 6.3.6. And Apple released just some stuff between last time and this time, as you can see in this list. The Mac operating systems, all of those had updates. And if you're running the iOS or iPad OS, you want to look and see if you got those updates as well. And coming from Apple, we do have 15.3 Sequoia coming, and some updates that are still in beta for iOS and iPad OS and the TV and the watch and the vision. Now, here's something I found that Apple used to hold events in this particular building. And this is what it looks like, or looked when the picture was taken. So they don't need it anymore. And the De Anza College in there, they tore it down. The original Mac was introduced here, and so was the iMac. If you got a Mac Mini like I do, that's equipped with an M4, there's been a bunch of reports of issues with the USB-C ports on the back panel, which is in the picture there. And most of the time it's USB adapters from A to C, and times when power is needed from the port to the attached item. The front side ports don't seem to have any issues because they don't have Thunderbolt with them. They're just USB-C. And Thunderbolt and USB-C are both in the aft ports. Apple is going to have to release a permanent fix. Sometimes disconnecting and reconnecting the item will restore operation for a while. Now I have the M4 equipped Mac Mini with the M4 Pro chip in it, and I haven't had any problems with mine. So your activity may be different. Now here's a nice little neat thing for your AirTags, and you can see that that AirTags use a CR2032 battery, which you can see in the picture in the right, and it's being replaced by 2 AA batteries, and this is a item that's called Elevation Lab time capsule. It's got a 10-year battery case. And those batteries are a whole lot easier to replace than the CR2032 wafer battery. And it's available for $20. If you want to buy 4 of them, it's $40. Now, the M4 and wide screens. There's online reports that people would have M4 Max and ultra wide monitors, they're experiencing display problems. And one user who has an M4 Mac Mini and a 34-inch LG monitor says his 380 by 1620 settings, not available on the Mini, but it's okay on his 16-inch M1 Pro MacBook Pro. And an Apple fix is required for that little issue. SA Techie has now developed a stand and USB hub for the new M4 equipped minis. And there's also an internal space for a NVMe solid state drive of your choice. And the top picture shows that drive sitting to the right of the Mini. And it's the exact shape, which is really nice. So it makes one little grouped object, and the USB-A ports on it and the memory card port as well. It also has a cutout in the back left so that you can reach the power on-off button of the Mini, which is in the back left bottom of the Mini. And it'll only cost $100, and I have mine. Well, I will order it when it's available for mine. Here's another incident where the Apple Watch saved a day. And this guy blacked out behind the steering wheel. And you can see he crashed through a garage into a pool. The next thing he knew, he didn't remember anything else. He knew it was a soft voice talking to him via his Apple Watch, telling him help was on the way and what to do while the pool water was entering his car. And a neighbor had some camera footage showing his car accelerating very fast into their garage and back out and then into the pool. So they figured that after he blacked out, his weight shifted and his foot pressed harder on the accelerator pedal to allow it all to happen. The latest rumors we have are still as that people are wondering if there's going to be a spring event this year from Apple. And they're supposedly already working on a 2.4 and 3.0 operating system for the Vision. How about the first half of this year seeing a MacBook Air with an M4 in it, and an iPhone SE4, and an iPod Air with an M4 chip? How about the iPhone SE4 be called an iPhone 16e instead? And how about the next half of this year? Will we see an M4 Ultra power the Mac Pro and the Mac Studio? And is this year going to see the release of an M5 chip from Apple? Well, we don't know if anything are going to happen until they actually do. But if we get an M4 Ultra to power the Mac Studio, I'm going to replace my Mac Studio with that one. Thanks for your attention so far in this part of the monthly update. And now we'll turn to things that have security interest. Not September, it's really January. How about that? And this is really for January. Chrome is updated, and you can see how many security fixes those apps had. And Firefox as well. And Office for Mac has now got more security fixes as well. And Apple had a bunch of security updates and last month, and we showed you all of them last month. There's no fewer fixes to report for this month. Now for cybercrime news. The research company named Checkpoint has reported that as the operating system for the Mac gets more popular, the bad guys are increasingly targeting the Mac. And those modern threats include sophisticated malware, phishing attacks, and malicious software like Banshee, which is a stealthy Mac operating system stealer. And that was a stealer that was made public for the first time last July. And it targets Mac operating system users and is able to steal browser and login credentials, cryptocurrency wallets, and some sensitive information. And through July to November last year, Banshee's author was operating a stealer as a service operation on black website called Telegram and other dark website forums. And he was continuing to improve the malware all that time. And then he hired 2 members to carry out campaigns targeting Mac operating system users. And somehow, some of his source code was leaked to one of the dark web malware forums, and that ultimately allowed antivirus engines to detect the malware code and protect against phishing campaigns from it. So we don't have to really worry about Banshee's malware. Now, Bleeping Computer was describing an operation being used to get the iMessage users to disable their anti-phishing protection against malicious links that are sent in text messages. The bad guys are exploiting a trick to turn off Apple Messages, iMessage's built-in phishing protection when you get a text message, and thereby trick users into re-enabling the disabled phishing links. The bad guys increasingly conduct smishing attacks against mobile numbers. And to protect users from such attacks, Apple iMessage automatically disables links in messages received from unknown senders, whether that's an email address or a phone number. However, Apple said that if a user replies to that message or adds the sender to their contact list, those links will then be enabled. So it's probably a good idea to be very careful of text messages you receive that you don't really know or expect, and not enable them by answering them. And finally, Apple is still updating XProtect and Remediator and Gatekeeper to do what it can to keep the bad guys off of your operating system and your files. And thanks for your attention. And of course, the overall moral of the story is to stay safe. And here I quit screen sharing.
Thanks, Ridge.
Thanks, Ridge. Appreciate all your work.
You bet.
And you will be putting kind of a synopsis of this into the show notes on TMUG Talk. Is that correct?
Usually.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next, we have the annual TMUG elections. And I promise that this election will be less contested and less strum and drang than the elections we've just gone through. And our election moderator is Bob Doms. Bob, if you're ready, take it away.
All righty, will do. Is microphone working okay?
Yeah.
All right, press on. In accordance with the TMUG Constitution and bylaws, annual elections are held at the general meeting in January each year. Tonight, we're going to elect the officers for the TMUG 2025 Board of Directors for the positions of President, Vice President, Secretary, Treasurer, and Member at Large. The candidates for each position so far are President Bob Wood, Vice President Ridge Prevost, Secretary Kurt Blanchard, Treasurer Mark Jaffe, and Member at Large Roger Harmon. As I ask for your comments, or feedback going forward, if you would raise your hand, it would simplify it for the recorder and myself. At this time, I will entertain nominations for any of these elected positions from the floor. Are there any other nominations? Well, since there are no nominations from the floor, Denny, are you volunteering for something? Oh, I saw your hand waving and I didn't want to let you miss out. Well, since there are no nominations from the floor, I will accept a motion that the named candidates be accepted as the final slate of nominations for 2025 and be elected by acclamation. Do I have such a motion?
So moved.
I
I
second.
saw Mark Yarnish's hand go up first. Do I have a second?
I second.
Kevin seconded it. All in favor, raise your hands, please, so that I can see them in the screen and hold them there for just a second. All right, we've got a screenshot and you're recorded. The motion to accept and elect the current slate of candidates for the 2025 TMUG Board of Directors is now carried. I hereby declare the 2025 elections closed, with the named candidates having been elected by majority vote. Congratulations to all.
23 years.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate you working through that for us. Okay. So next on the agenda is our guest presenter, Jill McKinnley, who's going to talk about the application Notion and how you can use it to organize your life. Jill, if you're ready, take it away.
All right, I am ready. Let's see. Oh no, it is not letting me share my screen. That's why I showed up early, so nothing would go wrong. Hold on.
Welcome to my world.
Will.
Right at the
We've all
bottom
been
of
there,
this,
Jill. We've all been there. We feel your pain.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I at work I always show up to meetings like 10 minutes early because I wanted to
Pre-flight.
just to make sure everything's set up and everything works right. And let's see, I'm just getting triangles.
Don't worry, we believe you.
Yeah, I know I'm getting triangles, but I don't know why. Oh, hold on 1 second. I might have to quit and come back in. I hope that's not true. Oh, good gravy. You try to be prepared.
do you see the share button at the bottom of the screen, Jill?
Yeah, but it's not allowing me. Hold on. I think I've never shared on this computer before. I'm gonna jump out and I'm gonna just go back in. So
We'll talk amongst ourselves while
okay,
you
yeah,
do
just talk about me.
Anybody
Jill,
have a tune they want to hear?
Be
Hey,
sure
I want
she has-
everybody to
be
meet
sure she
Gina.
has permission from the host to share.
hello,
Hey, Bob.
Gina. Welcome. Is this your first time here? If you wish to speak to
Almost.
us, you need to unmute.
She knows that.
We'll be
knows
happy to
that.
listen.
There we go. Yeah, I met a couple of you at the photo walk.
Okay, great.
And we
Great.
sucked her in. And now she can't leave.
Now,
Yeah,
now
we
I'm
got you now.
now I'm making Melissa's life a living hell. I keep texting her about my problem.
Okay. So we know who you are. We know how Melissa is sucking you in, and we're happy to have you join us.
I'm happy to
And
be here.
if you find this to be especially useful, we wouldn't mind if you were to join and send us our unreasonably expensive annual dues of $30. Here comes Jill
There we
now.
go.
Hey, she did
Yeah,
it.
turn it over to Jill.
Telling you,
And-
Gina's good luck.
I'm not hearing you, Jill. You're
But you have a
muted.
beautiful cover slide.
Yeah, you just got to unmute in Zoom.
There we go. All right, now we're
Now
there.
we hear you.
Perfect. Yeah, I won't say Windows is any better. I present for work, and as soon as I do that, all of PowerPoint destroys itself in my three screens and it won't show anything. So this is at least a little bit better. It works. All right, everyone. Thanks so much. I hope you're all doing really well. This is a presentation that I feel pretty close in my heart. I've spent my whole life liking productivity apps and trying to get organized. And I just got done with a series in my own podcast about how I had really bad ADHD. I couldn't do organizational things at all. And then the day I got my first smartphone, my life changed because I could make to-do apps, I could take notes, and they were organized and tagged, and I could search, and it changed my life. And ever since then, which was a long time ago, I've been working for trying to find like the perfect organizational situation. And after, I don't know, years of searching, I have come down to Notion, and that's what this presentation's about. Anyone here use Notion? No, no? Okay. So
I'm really
Notion.
excited.
Oh, okay. So we'll talk a little bit about Notion and options that you have and the costs or no cost, whatever you like to do. So again, part of this is to think about tools and to think about what kind of data storage you want to do. And maybe you'll walk away from this deciding Notion isn't the thing for you. That's fine. This isn't really a tutorial about Notion, but it's more like thinking about data, thinking about how you want to store data, and then maybe Notion is the right tool for you. So here's the problem, as obvious, is that we have data all over the place. You know, I have some in Office because I work with a hospital that uses Office. I have notes over at Apple Notes. I have to-do lists. I have things everywhere where I'm just having data. And the problem is that the data was everywhere. So if I was looking to, look at a topic for finding my next podcast, where did I store that really cool article I read last week? And it would be hard to find. So that's the problem that we're trying to solve here is where do we keep our data? And, it could be anything from like what movie. I saw a cool movie I want to show my family and I forgot where I wrote it down. Or where's that cool article? Or wasn't there something I was supposed to do today? And that's the inherent problem of it all. And so if you get your organization right and your data right, you find your movie, you find your cool article, and you know exactly what chores you're supposed to do. That's the goal, right? And so how do we take data that is just a mess all over the place and store it into one central location where everything is there? And that's the direction I really wanted to go in, although there's, I think, nuance along the way. And the question is then, how do you pick the right tool? How do you pick the right thing that you're trying to gather all your notes and things in? I'll be honest with you, I can't use Notion in the same way for my work as I can for my home life. My home life is perfectly organized, while my work life, we use Office, and Office is just not as good. And so I spent a lot of time going, now, where did I put that? Was that in SharePoint? Was that in to-do list? Was that an email? So picking the right tool is obviously the right situation to do. And then I started, getting into this idea. Do I want a tool like a to-do list, a notes recorder, a database of articles I want to save until later? Or do I want a toolbox? And a toolbox will just give me everything I want to do so I can be flexible enough to put everything into the same place. And I decided later on that I didn't want a tool. I wanted a toolbox and make my own kind of structures. And the question is what kind of notes do you have? And this is going to be personal to you. Do you have just regular notes, spreadsheets, databases? You keep track of all the movies you want to watch, the books you've read. For me, I have 4 podcasts, 3 YouTube channels, and I have to keep all that data someplace where I can find my schedules, find my notes, know what I'm supposed to do next. Tables. Maybe you just want a beautiful page, something that you could, like a poster or something like that you want to put up. Documents, attachments, structured data, that you can look something up and find it again, and mind maps. And it's going to be a question for you. What kind of data do you have that you want to store? And that's going to help you figure out what it is you need in a tool. And then what purpose are you doing it? For me at home, it is keeping track of my podcasts and my YouTube channels because I have so much data going this way and that way in different schedules. I need to know what I need to record, when is it due, when is it going up? And that is really why I got into Notion. And the question is, maybe you don't need that. My friend likes everything in paper. She feels like she doesn't need any sort of structured data at all. Although it's kind of funny when I go to her house and I say, hey, where is that one thing that you wanted us to go to? And then she's flipping through notebooks trying to figure out where she saw that article. So you might say you want one particular thing, but the question is, what do you really need? What's your purpose? What is the end goal of it? And two big, I would say, applications on the market, there's a few others out there too, are Notion and Obsidian. These are going to be very similar products, and they're going head to head against each other. And you can tell through updates that they're trying to compete with each other. There used to be all sorts of note-taking apps. In fact, because I came from the Microsoft world, that notebook binder thing, what was that? One notes or whatever that was called. one note. And it was a mess. I mean, honestly, they didn't have a structured data system in place. Notes were everywhere. But it was the best thing at that time I could find to structure my data. A lot of people have used various apps to try to keep notes over the years, or some people say, Apple Notes is just good enough. And in Apple Notes, it has been getting a lot better. But Obsidian and Notion are, like I said, competing head to head. They both can do notes, lists. They can do, they can organize your data. They can structure your data. You can query it. You can search it. You can customize it. You can collaborate with other people. They both have great support, and they both have free and paid levels. They each do something a little bit different. But you talk to a lot of people who are getting into this whole storing of data thing, they're looking at these two apps kind of as the leaders. There's a few others, Craft, which is beautiful. It's pretty, but I don't think it's quite as structured as some of these are. And so if you break it down, how do they compare? I said which things they do together. Similarly, they store documents, they organize it, you can search it. But on the Notion side of it, there's a web version of Notion, which is great for me because I work on a work computer that I'm not allowed to install apps on. So I can look at my work computer and refer to my Notion areas. It has notebooks, it has databases, it has very easy tables that you can create, views. And if you don't know what views are, is let's say I create a table, right? So I'm doing a Bible podcast 3 times a week, a chapter every week for the next 8.5 years. I have a table with my schedule on it. And in that table, I have my notes for each of the chapters of the Bible. I can create views of it. One view, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, are which chapters have I not recorded yet? Which chapters have I recorded yet? Which chapters are tagged with promises? Which chapters are tagged with history? I can create very easy tables and views so that I can grab all that information quickly. I can also publish something to the web. So I tried this a little bit is I took my little database for that podcast and I published it to the web and said, hey, if you want to see what the schedule is, you want to see where we're going to talk about next, here's the link to my Notion database so you can see everything I do. And it's kind of cool. It has a lot of APIs so that you can hook into other types of applications, such as Office or Monday, which is, I think, like a project management system. You can connect your Notion databases to some external site. And to be honest with you, it's really easy to just knock out a table, a view, a chart, whatever it is you're looking to do. Very easy to use. Obsidian is something that's very sophisticated and it has its own things. It works in Markdown. Notion can be in Markdown, but you don't have to be. You can just use kind of the rich text, WYSIWYG kind of style that you have. It can have PDF and it can edit PDFs directly in Obsidian, which is kind of cool. It has a whiteboard view, which means that you can share it in a different way, that you can have it display in a very graphical way. Like, let's say I created a database of all the books I've read this last year. In Notion, I could create a thing where I see all the covers of the book, but Notion has, or Obsidian has a very nice whiteboard view. It has some good graphs. Now, at the time of this presentation, when I did it this summer, Notion had no graphs, and they came out recently with their own graphs that you can create and generate. If I'm trying to exercise every day, how many days of the, how successful am I? What's the chart of me exercising every day? Am I doing all right, or am I kind of failing at that? Now they both have graph views. Instead of using APIs, it used plugins, which means you can install these plugins into Obsidian. And so maybe instead, like I said, I was going to connect to Office because I wanted to generate this Word document for me. They have plugins. And the plugins, I think, are a little bit easier to use. And I think the catalog of the number of plugins they have is larger, because it's something that you and I would create a plugin so that we could connect this to that. While Notion is more APIs, which is obviously going to be created by the company itself. Their local save is better. If something happened to the Notion company back in June when I first presented this, you would have lost your stuff. Like they didn't have backups or something. Everything is saved locally in Obsidian on your computer. So if they went down, if they went out of business, all your files are right there. And so you could get it into something else. Notion has come a long way in getting things more with local saves. And that becomes important because a lot of times when I used to work in my last job, I flew very often and I would want to sit on the airplane and work on my Notion database. I couldn't have done it very well back then. And it also has item level security. So maybe I like you and you're my podcast buddy, and I'm going to share my podcast database with you. You get to see everything. And if I gave you editability, you have the ability to edit everything in my podcast database. While in Obsidian, it's much more nuanced, where I could actually lock down and just say, you're allowed to see this one item. You're going to come on my podcast. I want to share this one thing with you. So the security is a little bit better on Obsidian. But for me, Notion was the right app. It has just been great for me. There are other people out there in the world and a lot of YouTube videos that show you how to use Obsidian. If you ever had a chance to listen to Mike Schmitz, who also speaks at MacStock, he loves Obsidian. And we're just, two different use cases, two different reasons about why it is. I wanted something easy to use. I could go in there, look at a list and see which podcast I have to work on next. While he's working on these mind maps that, what if I put in Obsidian every book I ever read and then tied them together? This is about tasks, this is about goals, this is about goals, and now I tie those two together. He's creating an empire with his Obsidian, and I just didn't feel like I needed that. It has a much larger learning curve. So Notion was the right app for me, and with it, I, like you maybe, are getting tired of subscription fees, everything charging a subscription fee. And so I ended up putting in there my to-do lists, my calendars, my documents. I'm no longer subscribing to Office. Pocket, which is what I use to read articles later. I am moving everything into that Notion. I won't say database, but let's say notebook. Let's call it a giant notebook. I'm moving everything in there. All my OneNote notes got moved in there, and habit tracking. So how much am I exercising? Do I eat my vegetables every day? How am I doing on my habits? But everything now is in my Notion area. And so they're separate, let's say, notebooks I can create. I don't like the idea of a notebook because it sounds too simple. But if I call it database, then it sounds too complex. But essentially, every project in there is my Notion. Everything is there now. So I replaced a lot of subscription fees and a lot of exercise programs, journaling, Bible notes, travel notes, exercise plans, all go into my Notion now. And like I said, this is not a tutorial, but just to show you a little bit about what it looks like, there's a side navigation on the left, and that will allow you to switch between your various notebooks. Like you can see, I have one for my Bible podcast. I have another that's for my tasks. I have my podcast tracker, which tells me what I'm supposed to do next. And it's very easy for me to navigate between them. But they also just came out with a homepage over the course of the summer. So my most frequently used notebooks can be right up there. My calendar, I don't use the calendar feature for this. They just, it goes through Google Calendars and I don't use Google. So it doesn't work for me until they come out with some more integrations. I'm hoping someday they'll go into something else. And then my next tasks. And at the very bottom, you can see these are the next podcasts I need to work on because these are my next task that I need to get done. So it always keeps me tuned in to what I need to do next. And then in the homepage itself, it is customizable. They recently allowed you to customize your pages a lot more than it used to be possible. And so now you can really make things your own and have floating navigations. But like I said, you'll see everything that you need to do right there on the homepage. So let me just stop here. Does anyone have any questions about that so far? Okay. Well, if you do, let me know. I'm not reading the chat, by the way. So if you say something to me in chat, you better say it out loud because I can't read and talk at the same time. But so the next step of all this, if you're trying to store data, is to identify which elements you're trying to store. Are you trying to put finances in there, your books, your movies that you want to watch? For me, my podcast. What is it you're trying to, save in there? And with Notion, it is very easy for me to add any element I really want to do. So if I just type in a slash anywhere in this Notion page, it'll say, well, what do you want to do? And it will show you this large menu. And we're going to get a chance to see this in a moment. What do you want to put there? So it first offers you, do you want to put a board, which would be a Kanban board? And a Kanban board we're going to take a look at, but that would be if I listed my podcast by status, to write, to record, to edit, to publish, that's a Kanban board. So it's basically, if you've seen Trello or some of these kinds of boards where you have little cards on them, that's what a board is. Just a list of items. Maybe I just want to see a list of all the podcasts I am recording. A timeline. Do I want to see across the eons of time when I had which podcast and when I started and stopped it and that kind of thing? Calendar. So do I want to put it on a calendar? We're going to see all these again. Or gallery. Maybe it's my book database and I want to see a cover of the book and I just want to see this gallery of pictures so that I go, oh, that was the book I really liked. And I click on it and drill down and get more information. But it all starts with just a slash and it will help you to figure out what it is you want to put together. And then when you're putting elements on any one of these things that you've decided, whether you want a list or you want a board, you can embed text, headings, dividers, buttons, equations. You can put in a table so that you have, my friend and I have a table of who owes who money. So we go shopping, we go out to lunch. I paid for lunch. Now she owes me $20. We write it in that table. And then it keeps track of the math. And every month she writes me a check of how much money she typically owes me. These are all standard elements that you would see, very, simple elements that you can put inside your Notion database so that you can keep it. So it acts a little bit like a Word document, but it can also act like a table or a database too. And you don't have to know anything about databases to make this happen. But you can also embed things into your Notion pages like images, web URLs, videos, audio, and anything, formulas, whatever you like. And on the third column of this is like mentions and dates and putting in tagging people. That would be something more like if I was using this for work and I wanted to say, hey, Bob, don't forget that you're going to bring in lunch for everybody on Thursday. And then I could tag you and it would send you a notice letting you know that I assigned a task to you. But it can put everything in there. And that makes it very nice for me on my podcast too, because I have biographies, I have images for all the podcasts, I have beginning and ending titles for all the YouTube channels, and they all just sit right there in my Notion. So if I ever need to pull one out, I have that document right there for me. So embedding is very useful. And when it comes to the tables, like I said, you can have all these different views of the same table. So I mentioned that you can create a board or a table or a list or a gallery, but in the end, you don't really have to decide. And in fact, you can decide on all of these. And we're going to take a look at my podcasting database, and I'll show you how you can use all of them. You don't really have to decide. And again, you don't have to know much about databases or anything about databases to make this work for you. You can, if you probably have a basic understanding of spreadsheets, Notion can work for you very easily. Oh, did someone have a hand up there?
Tommy, you have your hand up.
Tommy, do you have a question? You have your hand up.
No, probably not. Okay.
I take it.
I have a comment. This is
Okay.
Jerry. I
Yeah.
have a comment. This is incredibly rich.
Yes.
How many thousands does it cost?
We'll get into the prices, but it's not terrible. It comes out, I think, somewhere around $10 a month. If you want to pay, there's a free option where you don't have to pay a thing and you get most of this. In fact, I think that 90% of us who aren't in the business world could get away with the free option. So yeah, it does a lot. And then that's the nice thing about Notion is that you don't have to know anything. You could just use it as a Word document or a URL storage device and just use it like that. But then as you get better at it, then you can say, oh, well, maybe I want to make this better. I want to make this a table. I want, and so it'll grow with you as you gain in your own knowledge. Yeah, it's
I have a
pretty.
question.
Yeah.
Have you ever used FileMaker?
Oh boy, you mean like a FileMaker that was way back like in the 90s?
I know, because I can smell the smoke from Kurt coming over here. Wondering if this could be a FileMaker replacement.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is that I remember at one point I made a CD, I had CDs of music and then also videotapes, VHS tapes, and then what were those laser discs, right? And I had this whole database I made of my database and my friend's database, and at some point the whole thing got corrupted and I lost the whole thing.
Oh,
This
no.
this could replace all of that. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, wow.
It also has different integrations. So these are just a few. I just put a few on there. I'll show you in a minute. But you can integrate this with Google Drive and X and GitHub and Google Maps. But it also has an AI functionality too. So that if I were putting all my notes for my podcast in here, I could say, please write a summary for my podcast that I can put in my show notes, and it would do it for me. I started using the AI ages ago, and I really like it. It's very nice. But I hate to say ChatGPT is better. It's just better for everything that I do. So I ended up canceling, and that's another $10 a month for the AI product. I just felt ChatGPT was a little bit more. I'm a terrible writer. I'll just say it that way. I'm a talker and I'm not a writer. And so this gave me the ability with AI to take my podcast, get a transcript of it, and then have AI write my show notes, my blog articles, everything right there. And that's what I was using it for. I'm sure it has gotten better because I quit it about a year ago. So it's something worth keeping your eyes on. But it's kind of nice because while ChatGPT is looking at the world and trying to figure out what it is you're trying to do, you can actually have Notion AI looking at your world sitting inside of Notion, which is kind of cool. So this next step is that you have data, you want to store it, you figured out you want to use Notion maybe, and now you want to display it properly. This is where Notion really gets cool. And I'll show you. I have a thing against white pages, that won't let you customize the page and make it pretty. So I ended up creating the most obnoxious graphics I possibly could, kind of in rebellion of that. But as you can see, I can create a page with a view. And so this page, just a page, is more like a big long document. It's not even a table. It's not even a database. And as you can see, I have all my technical details. This is my RSS feed. This is my FTP. Here's my graphics. And so I just created some pages so that I could store basic pieces of information. That's the very bottom level of what Notion can do. It can just be a warehouse for all your articles. But then I started going through and I created a table. I know this is very small, but essentially what you have are my episodes. Which podcast is it for? What is the status of the podcast? What is the release date of the podcast? Who is the author of the book that I was talking about in this podcast? And other resources. And so I could tag it, put all my data right there so that I have this table of every podcast. And I do. I have my 4 podcasts. I have my 3 YouTube channels. And if you think about the Bible one, that's 8,000, I think it's 8,315 different episodes that I'm going to do in the future. It's going to take 8.5 years. They're all there. It's all listed there with different tags. So you can do single tags, you can do multi-select tags, any type of field data element you can think of. Some of these are text, some of these are select boxes, and some of these are just URLs, that kind of thing. So you can put any kind of data you want into this giant table. All right. But I could make a Kanban board of it too. So in this case, I want to see each of the different podcasts put up in columns. So I can look at this and say, well, gee, I have these podcasts, but look at that. I have nothing for Monday for the Cranes. I mean, that, I can look at each of the podcasts and see what status they're in. Am I ahead? Because this is very typical of me, at least in my podcast world. Some of them are very easy for me to go ahead in, and some of them are actually more contemporary, and I need to get them done this week because I don't want to do them too far ahead. This allows me at a glance to see each of the podcasts and the statuses and see how they're doing. Where do I need to do my work? But I also made another board. And in this board, these are the statuses. So in this particular case, I took that. So this is all feeding off of that big, long list of 10,000 podcasts, right? That I have, just a gigantic list. That list is impossible to look at. But with these boards, I can look at everything with a glance. So in this case, I see what I have to write, what I have to record, what I have to edit, publish, market, and then whatever is complete. So I can go through here and actually look at the work. Now, let me say, like in this particular case, before I was looking at my podcasts and see which ones I needed to do, which ones was I going to run out of first. But in this case, let's say that, tonight I'm going to work on my podcast and I'm talking all day today, I'm talking here. Maybe I don't want to record. Maybe I'm just too tired to record. Maybe I just want to edit some. Okay, well, those are the next podcasts I need to edit, and I can look at that board and see what I need to do next. All right.
So that's the same information, just presented in different ways.
Different ways. Yep. It is exactly the same list of 10,000 podcasts, all just presented in a different way.
It's a different view, but it's not really a view. You're actually really making a new board, but using the same database.
Yep. It's the same database. And not only that, and we'll talk a little bit, I can sort these differently. I can filter them out. So in this particular case, the filter on my calendar view is showing me everything that does not have the status of complete. If the podcast is complete, I don't want to look at it again. I want to see, I want to see what work I need to do. And so at this point, I can look now at the calendar and see when am I going to run out of podcasts, which is tomorrow, by the way.
Yeah, so you can have it present in a way that it makes sense for your brain to process it.
Yep. And so I do it differently. Like I said, sometimes I look at it and say, oh gosh, what do I need to do for tomorrow? Sometimes I look at it and say, oh, I really, I'm going to run out of Buzz, Blossom, and Squeak early. I need to start working on that. And sometimes I just want to say, like I said, I'm too tired of talking. I don't want to talk today, so I'm just going to work on editing.
And then this can be made to be collaborated with someone else?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there are some I collaborate with my friend. So let me say it this way. I have an account. I pay for it because I just love this piece of software. My friend does not pay for it. And then I can share my databases with her. And so that and she doesn't pay anything for it.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then you can change the access. So, if she's afraid, oh, I don't want to screw it up, can you just make it read only?
Yeah, I could. But I couldn't say, hey, you're only working with me on this one podcast. I don't want you to touch the other ones. Unfortunately, as soon as I give her access to read or edit, she sees it all.
Ah, okay.
That's the one limiting
Not as
factor.
not as granular. Not yet, anyway. Not until you go
Not yet.
talk to the developers and say, hey, could you make this change?
Well, they know Obsidian does it, and Obsidian is their big competition, so that's what they'll probably do. And then let me see, how am I doing on time? Make sure I'm doing all right. Okay. And then I can put a timeline. It doesn't make much sense for my podcast, but you can see I can put it over in kind of a Gantt chart timeline view so I can see my podcasts over time.
My kid is doing a science fair project right now, and all I can think about is how cool would that be?
Yeah, absolutely. Not only that, there are mobile views. And so this synchronizes with all the devices so that I have it on my phone. I have it on this desktop app. I can log into it at work with my computer where I'm not allowed to install anything. And so you could create a mobile views. You can either just have a mobile view or create it. So in this case, with my mobile view, you notice I took off many of the fields because it's too busy for well, I don't have the little phone, but it's too busy for a little phone to look at that. So I can create multiple views, one for my iPhone, one for my iPad. If I want to look at the schedules of things, I can do it. And you can and this is just a tip, you can even create these navigation devices on the right side so that I can easily click into something and then click back out again. With my big desktop view, I can obviously use the navigation on the left. That's not so handy when you're working on a little tiny phone. So. Or there's the gallery view. And so I made a couple of gallery views. So I built a database for my friend's gardening. That's where I say I made it for her. And so I shared this out to her. And so you can see I can embed different things into the same page. So I put a navigation tool in the upper left-hand corner. On the right side, she plants seeds. She's a gardener who plants a lot of seeds. So I was able to take pictures of each of the seed packets and put them out there so that she can keep track of all the seeds she has and then see at a glance, wait, what do zinnias look like again? Is it red or is it yellow? And then she can look at it and see it. And then I even got to put some graphic images in there for too. And on the right side, I created my Bible database that I've been creating. And so every time a passage is about somebody, this passage has John in it and this passage has James in it, I can tag them in it. And so now I can create essentially slicing up that whole podcast database and saying, show me all the chapters that has John in it. And so I can see it.
I only
And then
have
I can,
one question, Jill.
yeah.
Do you ever sleep?
I'm running into trouble.
I'm impressed.
I'll be honest with you. And that's actually, that's why I got into this, because I knew that if I'm going to do this, I have to be super organized about it. I have to be on top of this. I have to know what comes next. And that's why I'm doing this, because this is almost like these podcasts come. And then if I go camping, I decide, in the end of April, I'm going to go camping. Well, I'm going to be out a week. What do I need to do in order to go camping? You should have seen me right before MacStock. I'm like, oh, good gravy. I have so much to do, including the presentation. And all these podcasts are going to fire while I'm there. I have to have them done, ready to go, scheduled. Yeah. Yeah.
Very impressive.
Thank you.
Tell me who your favorite is and why is it Moses?
Yeah, right. Well, it's funny because they gave me a chance to use ChatGPT's very weird graphics to put in as pictures of everybody. And I'm like, why is James walking around with a big seashell? But I don't know. All right. And so it's easy to change view settings. You have a lot of options when it comes to each of the views. What is the source? You can see the source there is my database of podcasts. What is the layout? The layout is a board, the Kanban board. What is the property? I just want you to show me 3 properties. What is the podcast? What is the date it's due? And what is the status? That's the only things I want you to show me on that, because I have probably 20 data fields in that list of podcasts, but I only want you on those views to show me 3 of them because it would overwhelm it. Filters, I don't want to see the complete ones. They're done. It's over with. So you can see how you can customize every single one of these items to do that. And, write these very easy filters that when you're not technical, I happen to be technical, I work in IT, but some people aren't. And so it's very easy to say, show me all the podcasts where the status is not complete. I don't have to know anything about computers to do that. So then the next part is our dashboards and summaries. And so it does have the ability to create a dashboard if you wish to go through it. And this is where I really started stepping up my game. So as you can see, I started this out with a big long list of podcasts. And then I started learning how to create views so that it helps my brain know what to do next. And then the next part, I thought, well, wouldn't it be nice if I had a dashboard where I could just at a glance see everything? And so at the very top of my dashboard, I made that graphic at the top because it reminded me of all the cool MacStock people I meet when I go there. All my resources, my ideas, my graphics, everything's along the top. And then as I scroll down, I get the calendar, the 2 Kanban boards, and I see everything at one glance, what it is I need to do. And that is the view I look at 90% of the time I'm in Notion because it tells me what podcast work I have to do next. And this is a dashboard I did not create, but just to show you, this person decided to create a database of sort of their life. I bought this off of Etsy, which we'll talk about in a minute, but she has her weekly planner, all her clothes. Boy, I'm like, I wouldn't put my clothes in there. Her journaling, her morning routine. She can put a lot on her dashboard to make it nice and pleasant and useful to that person's purposes. And then the next part of it is you start recording data. So these are, fun things that I wanted to try. Where is it located? What can I do? So if it's a cloudy day, right, like I said, I woke up this morning, it was -14, and you say, well, gosh, what do I want to do today? I can see things that I could do at home, or if I wanted to go to a restaurant. And so my friend and I have this database of fun things to do. I wanted to show you, so you see the arrow on the bottom right where it says open. We're going to talk about this open. What is it opening next? What it does, it has a thing called side peek. So if you thought it was feature rich before, so I have all my data fields, right? My podcast, what status it is, when is the due date, what category is it in? I have my summary that's here. I even have the transcripts embedded in here. Cool. I have all, and when I click on side peek, I see all those data fields right there. Very easy for me to at a glance see on this particular podcast, here's all the data points. But at the very bottom, I can create my own templates so that I have information right there. So if someone sends me a comment on this podcast, I have a picture of the book that I recorded about the podcast, any other resources I used in the course of this podcast. And if you notice on the right-hand side, there's these generate buttons that are there. That is when I had Notion AI. So I could say, look in my transcript and find the top 5 quotes that came from this podcast edition, because maybe that's what I'm going to put in tweets. I even have a thing there that said Twitter, where I asked it, write some Twitter messages for me, social media things for me to go ahead and post on social media about this episode. So with its AI, Notion AI, it was creating all of that for me. Actually, the hilarious thing is I wrote something like reviews. I have a thing in there that says a listener review. So if someone says something to me about if they like this podcast, I accidentally put a generate button under there and it started generating reviews for me. And I'm like, well, that's nice, but nobody said that. So, And then there's also web clippers, which means if I'm looking at a really cool article and I decide that, I'd like to zip that into one of my Notion databases, I have like an article list. Like I said, I took Pocket, which used to be my read later application. I can take an article and just zap it and throw it right into the Notion list, right from a web browser. So there's a few web browsers out there. You have to be careful, as you are with any extensions that you put on your browser, that it isn't stealing data from you. But okay, so then the last part is we need to use the data. I can export it into Markdown and CSV. I can put it in HTML or PDF format. If I have like a particular page, I want to export the whole thing out. I have, and so think about it this way too. I have prompter. I have the Elgato prompter, which is why I'm looking at the camera all the time. And I can have this whole list of this podcast. So I'm writing my podcast and I'm going to do a podcast about snowy weather. I can export all that out into HTML mode and then throw it into the Elgato prompter for me so that I can read it. It also does integrations. It does a lot of integrations. There are hundreds of these. I tried to pick some of the most interesting ones out: Pinterest, Slack, If This Then That, which will allow you to do more integrations, Canva, Make, which I think is also one of those if this and that kind of thing. So I can also use the integrations to take this data and spit it out into something else. I'm hoping at some point to get to the point where it can create my WordPress articles for each of the podcasts, but I've not gotten there yet. I can share it with other people. So as you can see, I share it with my friend, and I have a paid account, and that allows me to do a little bit more sophisticated sharing with my friends. So I host her garden database. I host the Who Owes Whom Money database, and she can access it and update it as she goes along. And like I said, I can create a website out of it. So I can see that this is my Bible database, and I can put it out there so people can look at it. And as I analyze, go through this podcast, they can get the transcripts, they can get everything they want right from it. So some quick tips and tricks in there is that you can create buttons that will do certain things. So I have, since this presentation, created a button that makes a podcast complete. So I can just click the button and it automatically throws it into complete status. You can also do formula and code if you know formula and code. I am not much of a coder, and I have met people through YouTube who are coders and they will share their code snippets with you. But you can do in 60 different languages types of codes that would query your database if you wanted to do it, or do things like repetitive tasks. Every day I have to exercise and it'll keep creating new tasks for me. Put default values in there. So if every time I create a brand new podcast, I want it to be in the new status, I haven't started working on it yet. Or I can create templates for that side peek view so that where I had all those headers and places where I could put people's comments and everything, I can create templates. And so it automatically generates, when I generate a new podcast, it already creates that for me. And then the last step is making it pretty. I'm a big fan of making it pretty. Unfortunately, you don't have, all you have are the cover graphics at the top and font colors, which is not, I want to change the page color, but it won't let me do that. And you can also buy and download templates. It has a library. Notion provides a library, and I forgot how many they said is up there, 60,000, 200,000, I don't know. But if I create my cool Bible podcast template, I could just decide to share that with everybody and put it up there on the Notion library. So you can get free templates from Notion itself. But there are people out there, and we're going to show you that in a minute, where you can get them. You can get them from these people on YouTube primarily are selling their templates. Thomas Frank is a huge template builder, sophisticated, very sophisticated coding when it comes to his tasks, his storing documents, his content management. So he wrote something for people who do YouTube videos and podcasts. Or you could go to Etsy, of all places, and buy templates. The hilarious thing is a lot of times the ones on YouTube are very technologically sophisticated, but the ones on Etsy are pretty. So I bought for myself, I'm creating this huge database that's going to be my journal, my articles that are unrelated to podcasting, my fun places to drive and travel. Everything is going to be in this new database that I've been working on for the last 6 months. And what I did is I bought a sophisticated technological one, which cost me about $49. And then I bought another one on Etsy for $13 that was very pretty. And I'm hoping to make something just really friendly to use, but at the same time, sophisticated. And training. There is a lot of training that you could do. Like I said, YouTube has training on it. Either Notion itself has a very good level of documentation and training on it. You can also use Skillshare and some other programs that have Notion education on it. So there's lots of places to get information. And that Thomas Frank guy who's in the lowest left-hand corner, he's hilarious because he will write this very sophisticated database, but he'll do a whole YouTube video on how he created it. And if you don't want to buy it from him, you could just sit there with the YouTube video and create it yourself on your own. Or you could just buy it from him and have it done. So lots of places where you can get Notion training. So in the end, the question is for you, what do you need to store? What is it that you have to store? I got a lot of questions at Macstock of people who are like, I'm trying to keep track of my kids' schedules. I'm trying to keep track of this. There's a father there, a Catholic father, who wanted to create a database to store all his sermons that he ever did. So you have to ask yourself, what is it that you want to do? And here's my obscure quote. There's a movie called Joe versus the Volcano, and in that movie, he's traveling around with Ozzie Davis, who's a fantastic actor, and this is Tom Hanks. And he says, "Well, I don't know. I should buy some clothes. What clothes should I buy?" And then he says, "You say to me you want to go shopping. You want to buy clothes, but you don't know what kind. You leave it hanging there in the air, like I'm going to fill in the blanks." That to me is like asking me who you are, and I don't know who you are. I don't know, and I don't want to know. It has taken me my whole life to figure out who I am, and I'm tired. So in the end, I think that's kind of the gist of it is that everybody's use case is going to be a little bit different. The thing that got me into this was trying to organize my podcast and YouTube. And now I'm moving on to my sort of life journal document storage thing. But for you, it's going to be very different about what things you want to store. And so that is the end of it. If you want to contact me, you're welcome to contact me. If you have questions about it or you're going to create a database, I'm happy to help you.
Thank you, Jill. Beautiful. Information is beautiful.
Thank you, Jill.
Thank you,
Thank you so
Jim.
much for sharing your time and expertise with us. And
making it understandable.
exactly, and making it understandable. Are you going to be back at Macstock this summer?
Well, the funny thing of it is as you can see in my podcast, not one of them is tech, even though I'm a software, I work in hospital IT, I am a tech person. And so every time the next Macstock comes out, I sit there and think, oh goodness, what am I going to talk about? Because all the other people are tech podcasters. And so they know right off the bat what they're going to talk about. And I just sit there and go, oh goodness, what should I talk about?
Well,
Fill in the blanks.
you could come just as a um, not as a presenter, just as part of the audience and enjoy the
I could.
ambiance of the situation. But if you're going to be there, I hope to see you. And if you
Thank
do
you.
make a presentation, maybe we'll twist your arm one more time to try
course.
to get you to come back and talk to us again.
Well, I love doing it, and it's great. You're such a great group. I got such a kick out of how you are all helping each other, and I think you guys are so amazing that how you're making it. And then you created this presentation, and then you run it through once, and then it's done with. So it's kind of nice to be able to use it again. And
Okay.
yeah.
Are there any questions directly for Jill about Notion?
I have a question.
Yeah.
All right, I'm just gonna go for it. What do you have as a plan for your digital legacy when it comes to this?
That is a really interesting question because I have no, I accidentally made Jeff Gamet, if you ever saw him, as my
Oh yeah,
digital
Jeff's a
legacy
buddy of mine.
person. Well, I accidentally made him my digital legacy person by hitting the
Oh,
wrong button
Jeff's
on
no
my,
accident. Come on.
yeah. Like,
Uh,
I have a best friend and her husband and a brother,
uh-huh.
and so I have not done this because, of course, we're all going to live forever. But
Right.
yeah, I don't know.
Okay, well then there's your assignment.
Yeah, I think
There's
so.
your Mac Stack assignment because I think that would be a really good tool for digital legacy stuff.
Yeah. No, if something happened to me, this Notion database goes away because my friend doesn't know how it works and why it works, and nobody else has
Well,
access. So,
but her stuff is in there.
right, she'd be lost. But she wouldn't owe me money anymore, so she wouldn't have to keep track of it. But her garden would be in trouble.
Yeah, well, we can't have that.
Right.
So something to think about because that's
Right.
that's a lot of digital and that's a lot of a legacy to leave behind. So
No,
something to
it's
think
great.
about.
It's a good thing to think about, but I have not done anything. Yeah.
Okay, now everybody think about something happy, please.
Uh,
Awkward.
like I said, I'm creating a journal for myself and
Okay,
like a notebook article in my exercise journal, so that's going to be exciting and fun. But I
great.
have too many podcasts and I never get anywhere with it. So,
Okay.
Jill, you were going to talk about prices.
oh, yeah, I think I said that it's $10 a month about for just so for most people, free will work just fine. They If you want to do things like sophisticated charts, if you want to share with other people, if you want to collaborate, then that goes up to $10 a month. And then if you want the AI product, it's also $10 a month. But if you're using it for enterprise stuff, I don't know the price of it, I'm sorry, but they also have a pricing level for companies.
Joe, where do you get it? At the App Store, and what's it called? I'm kind of looking for it now.
Oh, sure.
For a Mac Mini is what I have.
Let me see here. Is it still sharing my screen or not really?
Yes, it
Yep.
is.
Okay, let
Nice
me
wallpaper.
Yeah, thanks. So I think we all have the same wallpaper. It is Notion dot so. I don't know why it's dot so, but it is Notion dot so, and that is where you can get it. And you'll create an account first, and the app is for free. You can use a web version of it as well. You can also go to their repository of all their different databases. And then if I go over here to pricing, as you can see, the free level, the $10 level, the business level, and then enterprise.
It's very much like QuickBooks. It's very similar.
Mm.
Like even their column layout for their pricing structure, and then you have your web UI, and then you have your desktop software version, and then you have your iOS versions. It's very similar.
Yeah. Let me just go in here and
Yeah. So maybe the idea of trying the free version and then maybe spending the
yeah.
$10. I like to support software people
Yeah. Sorry,
because it helps them.
Yeah, I didn't. I would have taken this out of dark mode here. Let me bring up Notion. So this is the website, but I also have an application, which is exactly the same. The nice thing about the application is it'll let you do tabs along the top. But things I'm working on now is a knitting and crocheting piece. I have the Who Owes Whom database, and this is my podcast database, which you can see. I have the calendar. I have the Kanban boards. And then, so yeah, so you can either use the app or the website itself.
Okay, great. Keep warm, Jill. 14 below in
Yeah.
Madtown.
Yeah, it's not pleasant. And we're not getting any snow either, which is making me sad. So it's because they all went to Florida and Biloxi and New
Okay.
Orleans. So
Okay.
thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jill.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I'm going to ask Bob Doms to put the link in the in the chat once again, and he just did, for the feedback form. We would encourage everybody to click on that now and just leave the Safari tab open and fill it out later, tomorrow, something like that, because it really does help us. Really does help us plan, and we know that what what you like and what you'd like to learn more about. Okay, I think we're gonna close it out for now and
Raffle.
do the raffle. Thank you. Thank you.
Don't
And
forget to
Jill, you
save the
can help
chat.
us one more time with this if possible. We would like you to ask your S lady to pick a random number between 1 and 32.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Let me do that. Okay, so if I do it here, is it going to set off everybody's S lady? Should I mute or is it okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Hey Siri, give me a random number between 1 and 32. It shows 6.
6.
6.
6 is Lori. Lori, congratulations, and I know that you just joined TMUG by sending in your Zelle payment, but we're not going to give you it today because you're not a member of record right now.
Don't worry
So,
about it. I have no problem with that at all.
okay, Jill, let's
Okay.
try this again.
Okay. Hey Siri, pick a number between 1 and 31. Right. 15.
15. 15 is Chris Wesselman. Let's see if he has won anything in the last 6 months. And it's been since March, so he is eligible. And Chris, you
Yay.
get the door prize for this month. Again, I will ask if you'd like to join us for our second in-person meeting since the before times. Takes place on Thursday, February 6th at the Murphy-Wilmot Library in Tucson, starting at 3:30. We are likely to have some door prizes or things to give away. And it's going to be mostly a question and answer session and a social kind of event. But you're welcome to attend whether you are a member or not. But we would like you to send in an RSVP if you can, so we have some idea of how many people are coming. With that, I am going to save the chat.
I have one more question, Bob.
No, sorry, no more questions. Go ahead.
I just wanted to know real quick, does anybody have anything really burning that they would like to know about passkeys as I'm researching and preparing my presentation for next month? There's not a whole lot of new stuff, but if there's anything in particular anybody was struggling with, because I know everyone has read all of the resources that I gave you last year. You've had all year to do all of that homework I gave you. And I gave you a lot of it.
Yeah, I have a question, Melissa.
Okay.
How hard is it to make passcodes more secure
Passcodes?
or passkeys more secure? Like, for example, say I
How much more
have
secure you want, Kevin? Come on.
well, I'll give you an example. Sue accidentally set up a passkey on Amazon. I was on her computer the other day. I just went to Amazon.com and it signed her in. I didn't have to do anything.
That's the way it's supposed to work.
Okay, but what if somebody else was to say we had a guest and they sat down at her computer? They're automatically signed into these websites. To me, that's a security, more of a security risk than it is a convenience.
Okay, so send me an email so I'll think about that a little bit longer. That sounds like a very individual use case. So it's like she's signed in and she's stayed signed in. She hasn't
No,
signed out.
nope. She didn't. I went to Amazon.com and said, "Would you like to use passkey?" I said yes, and boom. No, it didn't ask for anything else. It just signed her in.
Yeah, I'm gonna need a little bit more information.
Yeah,
Okay.
there are certificates that I had to get a Security Plus certification a few months ago, and there are certificates that are essentially sitting out there on your computer under the guise of either passcode or passkey. And basically that is an issue where you let somebody else use your computer and you can just say, yeah, I want to log in like that. So the bottom line is you don't let anybody use your computer, or you make sure that you sign out.
Either you sign out
Yeah.
or you got to trust somebody. that you
There
let sit in
is
front of
no
your
sign
computer.
out on those. That's the problem with passkeys,
I
at
thought
least that
was
I'm
the
seeing.
of passkeys, that it was
Yeah.
device specific and anybody on the device was
Right?
signed
It
in.
is device specific.
Yeah.
That's why she said you don't let anybody use your computer that you don't trust.
Easier
But it's
said
your
than done. Like, what if you're at work and you set up a passkey on say, Facebook? You get up from your computer, the passkey is on the device. Anybody who sits in front of your computer now has access to your Facebook account.
why are you
Well,
using Facebook at work?
yeah, and also like what I was taught decades ago when I started my career is if you get up away from your computer, you lock it.
Yeah. I tell that to people all the time, but you think they listen?
No.
I
Well,
work for a hospital. I have to do it because I have access to
exactly.
PHI.
Right. There's compliance issues there. So,
Hmm.
all right, great questions, but yeah, keep them coming. Hit me up. Email me. And everybody knows my email, so throw them at me and
What
I'll
is that
include them and I'll
email
try to address
address
them.
again, Melissa?
It's Melissa, Melissa, just like my name is spelled, at the MacMommy, TheMacMommy.com. That's
Thank
me.
you.
Thank you.
With that, I'm going to say goodnight.
Yeah.
Good
Good night,
night.
everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
I'm
All
going to
right.
quickly say, Lori, our bank acknowledged your payment, so you're the.
Is
Oh,
Lori
okay.
new too? We have 2 new members. How many new members do we have tonight?
Well, we have visitors. We have visitors
We have
from
visitors and we have new
Ohio,
members.
and we have a new member, Lori, and we have people from Central Time Zone. Jill is in Madison, Wisconsin, and we have Jerry Gifford from California. So we're, multi-state people
We're popular.
now.
Yeah, and I meant to become a member like months ago, but I was just too lazy to get an envelope and mail a check and get a stamp. So
Now you
it's
don't
much
have
easier to
to.
do it online.
Well, welcome, Lori.
Thanks.
Yes,
Welcome, Lori. Glad
welcome.
to have you. Maybe you'll win the door prize next month.
You
Are
never
you new
know.
to Tucson as well?
I'm sorry, what?
Are you new to Tucson as well?
Oh, gosh, no, I've lived here for like over 50 years.
Oh, okay.
I came to go to the U of A. It's like, we're going to go to college where there's no winter. And so I came to go to the U of A, but I didn't graduate from the U of A, went back to Illinois, got my degree, and then immediately came back. So,
All right. Well, welcome.
Cool.
Okay.
All right. You're among friends. All right, everybody. Have a good
Good night,
night.
everybody.
Good night.
thanks. Good
Good
night.
night.
Save the chat.